Good to see you again. We're recording a Clay workflow that I've just created to really identify specific contacts that have already been touched within the Clay table. So this is what I often run into. You can look at my Clay sheet here. I have a list of prospects, some 1,400 prospects. It's very hard to specifically grab just the prospects one at a time from a company. And so what you see here is both Kathleen and John belong to this company called 3Play Media. What I want to do is to only process one prospect per company at any given time. And easier said than done. The manual way is to sort them by the number of times the domain repeats and then follow on with an additional sort that is the company name or perhaps the account ID. And then you can manually click on each one. You see I've already started doing that. It's very tedious and it takes a long time, especially if you have hundreds, if not thousands of prospects. And the ultimate goal of any system like Clay is to eventually build workflow automation so that you can just set it and forget it. And so in order to do this properly, we need some kind of automation that's going to identify just one prospect from a list where there may be multiple prospects per company. So that's what we're going to explore on how to do today. I've never done it before, so we're going to learn together. Where I first started is counting the number of times a domain is found within this table. I have this column here. You can see that it finds repeating domains per table. I point the table to search as itself, and I look for the prospect domain equal to the prospect domain. And this works correctly. When 3Play Media prospect domain is found twice in the entire sheet, it will return 2 records found. In this column, I extract the number of records found as a plain text number, and you see that here. And this is, if I go to the very bottom, currently sorted by number of repeating domains. It gets egregious, right? If I go to the bottom, there are cases where the same company may be in this table 8, 10, sometimes 20 times, and that is obviously a problem. So let's figure out what we can do. What I've started doing is I created an additional enrichment where I write any rows that are multi-domain to a separate table. Now, what does that mean? Let's unpack that. So I've chosen this additional table called it the same name as the original table, but I added a dash and I put multi-domains. So I've got that here. Okay, and I'm checking this prospect domain, pass in all the values from this prospect domain, and then I ask it to write the domain to the domain on the other side. So what comes out of this is I get essentially this here. It wrote this domain, and now I think this is really where the magic comes in. What I'm going to now do is I'm going to do a single row lookup. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to point back to the main table where I initially imported all of those records, and I'm going to look for the prospect domain equal to the repeated domain, right? But I'm only going to return one record, and that's the magic. So that's what you see here. I did it with 10 records just to see what it looks like. And sure enough, what I get back is just the first record from potentially a match of many, 2, 10, doesn't matter. We're only going to take the top record. Amazingly, we could actually add additional checks to make sure that the filter operator might contain certain values. So for example, in cases where there are 7 different records and 5 of them say SDR, and then 2 of them say customer success. Well, we don't want to take the customer success record if we're targeting sales development reps. And so that is an additional feature that you can add. I'm not going to worry about that here. 1, to keep it simple, and 2, because I've already filtered that master list here to be all SDRs. Okay, so now that we have 1 record per domain in here, what I'm going to do is map the values that are returned here to the specific columns that we have. This is essentially like performing an import. And you can see I've done the initial step here. So when I look at this in a formula view, what I'm actually doing is I'm saying, go to the lookup table. If there is a record, return the record. And if there is a record, then give me back the first name. So that's what's happening here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to use that for the last name as well. Okay. And I'm going to keep doing that for all of the values where it's the same header name. All right, we're going to hit fast forward right now because we're just going to go through this title by title, column by column, and that's probably pretty boring for you. Okay, and we're back from the fast forward. Now, what I've done as you saw in fast forward, I mapped all of the results that we've got into the appropriate columns that we're going to need for this table. And the next step is for this particular table to determine whether or not this particular prospect and its domain are cleared to be sent. Now, what I'm going to do here first is show you that the number of domains have actually been written twice. In this case, because the responses are, of course, twice coming from the other table where there are two records for this domain. The magic is that we should be getting the same prospect twice. And let's see if that's true. Let's add a sort, sorted by company. And for, well, that's very interesting. Oh, company name. Okay. So we get 3Play Media twice, but you see we got Kathleen twice. So that's exactly what we want, because then what we're going to do is add a deduplication step that removes duplicates based on email. And that's what I want to do next. So let's do that. Auto dedupe disabled. Now I'm going to say enable deduplication on the basis of email. Ta-da! Okay, I love that. So now let's go back to our master table. Let's process more domains. So again, here we have hello Eleva, and I'm going to just run it manually. Let's take a look at it. And what we should see is that from these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records I just created, we should only be bringing in 1, 2, 3 new prospects. 1, 2, 3 new prospects. That's awesome. Now, I love that because I don't have to manually click through hundreds of rows, which is just going to aggravate my carpal tunnel. And now we should be able to use this subtable in exactly the same way as the master table. It's really just containing a subset of leads, which are 1 per company. Okay, so the one thing I'm not sure about right now is that this find repeating domain doesn't seem like it reran, because after the deduplication step, we see that it still says 2 records. I bet if I run it again, it should say just 1. Yes. Okay. So this shouldn't be a problem going forward, because now that we have the deduplication step happening, it's taking care of it as it brings in those records. Okay, now we're all set. So what that means for me is that the cleared check is going to pass, and it's going to pass at 1 prospect per company, unlike the master list, going back to that again, which has all the check marks are off because I could see that the system is trying to contact 2 prospects per company, and therefore I haven't cleared it. And none of the additional automations that I've set up, such as email validation, personas, ChatGPT written messages, will run, so that I don't use credits, of course. Okay, so with that, let's run all of these multi-domain steps. Let's run it. Yeah, I'm going to hit fast forward here as well, because Clay can sometimes take quite a while to actually run all of these individual rows. So doesn't make sense to just kind of sit here and stare at me. So cue the fast forward. Hang on a sec. What is this company that has 44 records in here? Who is this? Threat Locker. Man, we just got so many prospects from their company. My gosh. I mean, if this doesn't convince you that you need to filter your outbound list so that you don't simultaneously and accidentally contact 44 people from the same company, I honestly don't know what will. Uh, don't do it. Don't contact more than a few. I think three is the best practice. Don't contact more than three people from the same company because their email service provider or their email client is going to flag it and it will reduce your email deliverability. You definitely don't want that. Okay, and we're back. All of the rows have now been created. You can see that here. Let's go check the multi-table. Okay, I suspect that this is still under the process of deduplicating. So what I'm going to do is reload this. Interesting. We see that this person, for instance, has been listed twice despite deduplication being turned on. That makes me think that the deduplication doesn't happen automatically. Let's take a look and make sure what's going on here. Okay. For now, it looks like all the records have been inserted, 377 records. And let's go ahead and perform that step. Now it's deduped. And you saw there that maybe it hit some kind of limit. Not sure what happened, but the deduplication step got stuck, and that's okay as long as we notice that. And what I did is I turned it off and then turned it back on. And now we can look at the table history and we see that 695 records have been deduplicated and as recently as X number of minutes ago. Okay, so now we'll just give this a quick eyeball. I don't see any more duplicate emails, and we now have the full list. Last step is to make sure that this cleared is checked off, which means, again, we need to just rerun the find repeating domain, and we're going to do that. Now, again, what this is going to do is just check that we do only have one domain, one record per domain. And if all of these turn out to equal 1, then the purpose of this subtable will have been achieved. And then after that, we're just going to proceed as we normally would, just as if we had uploaded this as a list of contacts via CSV. And now we're going to process them. We're going to use zero bounce. We're going to use our series of workflow steps to process them and send them out. Okay, this looks clean. I like it. Let's give it a quick eyeball. These are still queued up, but you can see that many of these were greater than 1, and now they're back to 1. It is correct. So that is exciting. Looks like it's all done. Let's take a look at our cleared check mark, which contains that logic. Okay. This looks good. All right. Now you'll notice that in some cases it is checked off, and that's because it is running into an additional check that I have, which is when is the last time I touched that domain? It looks like bigid.com, I emailed them as early as less than 20 minutes ago. So we're not going to message yet another person from this company. And that's why you see some of these are checked off. August 14th, August 13th. So I have this check here that is going to look at whether or not it's been touched in the last 7 days. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. And we look forward to seeing you out here in the trenches of cold email. Talk to you soon.